Welcome to the Women in Consulting webinar series. Our guest speaker today will be Sharyn Fitzpatrick. She'll be talking to us about building the best game plan for virtual events. My name is Ellen Grace Henson, past president of Women in Consulting. And first I want to take us just through a little bit of information about Women in Consulting. Women in Consulting is all about the power of community, about each of us supporting other women, supporting ourselves and supporting each other in building success. For 21 years, we've served female consultants and entrepreneurs, really a community that supports each other and we all thrive together. And as you know, part of that in these challenging times has been our shifting our webinar pricing and making sure that for those of us who are impacted by the COVID-19 circumstances, that the cost of a webinar is not a barrier to your success. We also have mastermind programs, and we've got a couple of more slots left in our mastermind program. We've got some people here who have participated in mastermind programs and who are currently participating. I'm a participant in a mastermind program, and I just want to say that I really appreciate the level of relationship, the depth of the relationships I'm developing with these women, and the amount of support I get and the great feedback and the great conversations we have in terms of, again, supporting each other in the success of our business. And one of our members, Crystal Wash, really thought her participation in Mastermind was essential for helping her grow her business and move forward. I just want to say, before we turn this over to Sharyn, I want everybody to remember that play and fun are an important part of learning that has been forgotten in a lot of the Zoom meetings many of us are attending. We're starting to see articles about Zoom fatigue, etc. Well, if we remember that fun is an important part of creativity, then our Zoom meetings will be a lot more exciting. And there's nobody who personifies that nature of fun better than Sharyn Fitzpatrick, our speaker today. Sharyn's going to talk to us, as I said earlier, about building the best game plan for your virtual events. And she'll present a blueprint for us to start our own webinar programs from start to finish, including templates, tips and tricks, and insights into the range of applications you can choose from for your webinars. Thanks. Sharyn, it's all yours.
I want to say hello to everybody wherever you are. So today I thought we'd have a little bit of fun. Those of you that know me may also know that I am a die-hard Penn State football fan. So let's kind of build the game plan. So again, for virtual events. And I'm calling it virtual events instead of just webinars. A lot of things that we're doing today, they're a little bit more casual, some of the events that we're doing. And we want to encourage that participation because we're all in different places. Our world has changed. In the last 10 weeks, everything has changed. The way we do business has changed. Everything else that we do, we need to rethink how we do it. And that's been really interesting because a lot of the day-to-day stuff that I use, like virtual events or virtual meetings, have really started. First thing, when you hear about the fact that you're going to have to learn how to do a virtual event, don't panic. You can do this. And it's really important to think about that because everybody kind of gets overwhelmed by the concept of doing a webinar or a virtual event, and they kind of forget the fact is it's really just a conversation online. So where do you start? That's a good question. And what I like to do is look at this as if it's a production. I have a TV broadcasting production background. What I look at in particular is how do I kind of set it up for success? So I think about what has my experience been as an attendee? What do I like about some of the webinars I've been to? What do I not like about them? Death by PowerPoint is my least favorite thing. Their content is really boring. And that's really important to kind of look and think about, well, I don't want to create an experience for my attendees that's like that. I want them to have fun, be engaging, and really learn something so that the call to action is they're going to get something that they can do that's actionable, go out and do something for themselves. So that's why it's really important to maybe put yourself in someone else's shoes. Can you think of what do effective speakers do really well? One of the things that's really important is having a focused presentation, focused on the content, focused on delivering the information. Be engaging as a storyteller, having great content, but also patience and grace under fire. And I like to tell a story here. I did a presentation for a trade show, and I was online. It was kind of a hybrid, both people in the room and I was online, and the technology died in the middle of it. And it just so happens it died at the slide where it said, don't panic. So you really need to embrace who you are, have fun. For those who don't know Penn State, this is the Penn State football locker room. I'm wearing my Penn State hat. I got my Penn State jersey on. I got my game gear on. I am all set, because that's part of selling the personality. That's how you get to be the engaging part of as a storyteller. I put together a game plan. What do you want to accomplish with your webinar program? Are you looking to promote yourself? Are you looking on building that third-party credibility, maybe a future TED Talk? Are you looking to build lead gen for your business? Or are you looking to do all of it? And so what I do is I sit down with a cup of coffee or a margarita, and I figure out what is the profile of the people that I'm trying to reach, define my user experience, any messaging and call to action. Do I want them to follow up with me? Do I want them to download something? Do I want them to join my list? And then think about all the things that you'll share with your attendees besides just your slides. And create that content story. That's really important. Starting with content, that's the first step in kind of building your playbook. Content is king. You have to have something that's well thought out. I actually use Word to kind of figure out what the content should be each step, and then I build it up with slides. You need to also create handouts that you think are really going to be impactful. One of the sample things that you may or may not know about PowerPoint is PowerPoint in the notes section is a great place for you to create handouts. You don't want to just share screens. You could create a handout that has, like the one on the left was created using PowerPoint. And it's really easy, and it's really how you can survive handout hell without just having page after page after page of slides. It's something to think about, because what do you want that person that's attending your event to have to refer to as a follow-up? Oh yeah, I really thought I loved how to make my presentation shine. Let me go back and refer to that. And again, of course, your branding is on the bottom. Tell me the whole story from start to finish. Whatever it is, if your story is about research or delivering survey results or talking about how to build a program and all the things you need to think about, tell it like you talk. This is have a conversation, use strong visuals, make it personable and relatable. And I'm losing my hat, guys, so I'm gonna put it back on. There you go. I think I'm taking it off for now. So, and add surprise. I think that's really important too, because you want to make sure that you surprise them with something. There's also, in today's environment, a webinar used to just be a webinar, or an event just used to be an event. But we kind of have some challenges with that. We have an age group that just want just-in-time information. They don't want a ton of information. They want something that's quick so that they can make decisions. But they may also want more focused webinars that are kind of middle of the sales funnel, where you kind of give them customer and partner case studies, more in-depth personas to whatever their business problem is. And kind of the bottom of the funnel is more in-depth deep dives, product demos, how-tos, a little bit more than that. So that's important, because that can be part of your strategy. You can tell your content story in time. You can do them in 20 minutes for an increment, or you could do a 30-minute increment, or you could do a 45-minute increment. And that's really how you're telling your story. And you can also then repurpose and reuse some of that content to make smaller, what I call snackable webinars that we'll talk about a little bit later, just to highlight maybe a speaker or content. I get this question, oh my God, I don't know how to use the webinar platform. What do I choose? How do I do it? And the way I look at webinars is I look at what do I want to accomplish? How do I define the user experience? And I take it for a test drive. What is it that it does that might encourage me to try a different type of webinar? What is it that it does that I never would use? Or I'd love to see how it's used, or what can I do to really change the experience for the end user? How can I do that? I have created a webinar platform options page that's a handout for you guys. And I went through 13 of the webinar platforms, kind of put in the pricing, some of the special features. For example, in GoToWebinar, you can upload the video to their cloud storage and it plays beautifully. There's no lag time, there's no problems with audio. You can also in Zoom do live streaming on Facebook. On WebEx, for example, do whiteboard, handouts, etc. That's kind of the easy kind of end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is a lot more involved and a lot more expensive. And you pay for that content, you pay for those features. I love On24, but it's upwards of $10,000 a year, but it does so much. Yes, but I think for what we do, $10,000 a year is not realistic. I think we have to kind of look at that. I pay $2,000 a year for GoToWebinar, and versus just Zoom Meeting, which is $112 a year. So, you really have some interesting ways to think about it, and you have to select something that actually will fit your business need and what you're trying to deliver.
Excuse me, Sharyn, I just wanted to ask a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
Right? How would you describe the difference between a meeting and a webinar?
The biggest difference is participation. In a webinar, a lot of times you have all of the attendees are muted, and in a meeting, they're either self-muted or you mute them on entry, but they can talk. You can't do that in a lot of the webinars unless you call on them. It's more, you have a captive audience where they can't say anything, that's a webinar. You have an audience where they can participate and talk and be on video, that's a meeting.
That's great. Thank you for that definition. There's a couple more questions if you're okay with my asking.
Totally fine.
A couple of them are kind of technical, so if you can't answer it, we can look for the answer and get back to people. But one of the Ginger Whedon's asking when she tries to live stream from Zoom to Facebook, there's a delay of 3 to 4 seconds. Is that her bandwidth issue, or is there something else going on?
No, that's Zoom. I noticed that on Zoom recordings too, there's definitely a lag. It's actually what they call milliseconds. It's actually 6 milliseconds behind, and it's very frustrating. So it is just what it is. And you also are going to find that when you go to live stream on Facebook or any of the others, you also might have degraded audio as well, where it's really slow or it's choppy. That's definitely been part of what I've seen for Zoom so far. And I'm using Zoom Meeting as also a way to record people as well for panels and interviews. And I'm finding in the post editing part of it, that is really frustrating.
Okay, and I just the question about the difference between meeting and webinar came from Chaco Ando. And then Dinah Jacobson has a question. Dinah, maybe you could explain a little. You say they want a virtual platform. Do you have a little bit more that you can say about what do you mean by a virtual platform? You can unmute if you'd like, or type it into the chat, whichever you're most comfortable with.
Too many
the technical
inputs.
Things we learn by practicing, right?
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for doing this. It's great stuff so far. So my clients are interested in doing, obviously they can't do it's not going to be the same as a live event, but they'd like to imitate that or provide an alternative solution as much as possible. So they're looking at product demos, breakout spaces, a more, not necessarily, definitely a one-to-many platform, but also a platform that allows group chat, really more of the On24 experience. And
Right.
it's great to know about On24. We're exploring that, but I would love to hear about, and luckily they do have a budget, so they're not, they don't immediately balk when you say $10,000 to $25,000. I would just love to know of other solutions we might explore, and I'll be happy to share the ones that I've already looked at.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's so busy. I'm also having a really hard time getting salespeople to return my call.
I know. Just what a concept. Let me answer it in two ways. One is I love On24. I love the versatility of On24. I'm a diehard webinar and very proud of it. I love their technology. What I love really about their technology is the ability to have group chats when you're actually using things. So you have a webinar, let's say you're doing a live webinar or a hybrid webinar, you can have the attendees talking to each other. It's the only platform that really lets you do that when you're in a webinar mode. And that's great because they can share resources. What I would suggest you look at is the ability to do hybrid releases or hybrid events. And what a hybrid event is, let me give you an example of how I've used hybrid events. I have a client that I had for 5 years, don't have them anymore. They got sold in February, ironically, but we had to deal with everything on a global scale. So you can imagine we have a product launch, we have it on the West Coast time, the East Coast time, we have Europe, we have Asia. How do you do that? And how do I ask the founder and the CEO for all that time? So what we did is we recorded it once, and then we did live Q&A for the first one. I edited it down, I uploaded it as a video, so it's all the way through. The end of the presentation, they came in for live Q&A. And we did that across multiple areas. That's one way to do it. There's a question about Google. Google just started an ad campaign about doing something similar to Zoom. I haven't really looked at it. I don't know that much detail about it. I saw the commercial yesterday. So hybrid events are a really great way to do something that is a combination of using an asset that you already have and introducing it to a new audience with live Q&A. Is that something, Dina, that you guys have looked at?
So can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that is exactly what they'd like to do because of technical snafus, but it's really the software platforms that I'm asking about.
Right.
We're looking, I know there's vFairs, I know there's Intrado, we're looking at Bizbo now has a solution.
Right.
It's good. It's pretty slick, I'll tell you. Cha-ching. But
yeah, exactly. Especially in Intrado, that's one that's really ka-ching.
So I have a question. Are these are out just as again, clarifying the platforms that you're mentioning, they go beyond just webinar?
way beyond webinars.
Way.
So maybe that's good content for another conversation. That sounds awesome.
Oh, okay.
No, I want to explore that more. I just don't want to derail the current conversation.
For sure. Okay.
And there's a question in the chat. Thank you very much for helping us expand our thinking, though. I'm curious now about all these other platforms. So Nancy Nelson asks, which platform would you suggest for sharing videos in the presentation?
I think the easiest, the one that's the best with frame rate and everything else is GoToWebinar. And I think I like that one because that one really catches up. Zoom, you can do it, and we're going to test it here, but it's a little bit behind and it lags. So if you're trying to do something where they have no idea that it's a hybrid, and your GoToWebinar is really the best platform for that. We also had a question if we were just talking about virtual conference platforms, and the answer is yes. That's exactly what we're doing. I belong to a meetings community group, and we're having a big discussion about this tomorrow, because now we're not going to be able to do meetings the way we've always done them in the field. Now it's going to change. So that's something that we need to start thinking about, is how can we still accomplish what clients or companies need to do when it comes to conferences, but make sure that we're following all the social distancing and rules and safety and all that sort of stuff. So
Great.
it is a really big topic these days.
That's awesome. So we'll look at putting a conversation around virtual conference platforms on the calendar. And Dinah, if you wouldn't mind, just in the chat, could you put in the names of some of those platforms that you mentioned? Oh, great. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I was doing that now. I'm typing it up. Okay.
Just curious about this particular chart that you're showing right now. Under Zoom meeting, can we not edit this recording when we're done?
You can edit the recording. What you can't do on the meeting side is upload it back to Zoom if you were trying to share it from Zoom. You can do that and go to webinar. And go to webinar, you can actually take the recording, download it, edit it, put the branding and everything else on the front, you know, intro, outro, video, and then upload it back up and connect it to a webinar, and then invite people to a webinar or to it on demand so that you'll get more play. That's where it may not matter anymore because we have Vimeo and YouTube and all that sort of stuff. We have a couple of different ways to do it.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding. I can take the video recording from Zoom, I can edit it, but then I have to present it in a different application and different software.
Well, you can't put it back up in Zoom and attach it to the original meetings. That's where you just upload it to Vimeo or to YouTube and you just include that. The point is, I call it eye candy. I was the editor of the largest PowerPoint presentation magazine in the world. We had 150,000 subscribers. I became quite the PowerPoint geek. And one of the things that I heard over and over again from people that were readers or people that were experts is you really need to wow them with great visuals. You don't want something that's 6-point type, so you can't read it. You have no idea what it is. You also want to say a picture does say 1,000 words. It really does. You want to give them the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's really important that you are able to kind of give them that message when they see a slide. These are actual slides that were sent for a webinar we did on how to fix slides, you know, remaking slides and what they could be. You can really see this is just not the way you want to do slides. You don't want to make it 1,000,001 bullets. You don't want to have it be so much charts and graphs you can't figure out what it is. What can you do? I'm going to add a graphic and put some text on it. Then you kind of have to think about the readability. What is it that you have? Am I going to be able to read it? Can you read this? Do you understand the message? How about now? And so what you're able to do is let the picture and whatever words you have tell the story. And that's kind of part of the fun of it. And here's some of the slides that we've kind of updated from the makeovers that we've done. It's actually one of the most popular webinars I've ever done is the makeover one. We had over 1,100 last time we did it. Thing to think about is engaging the audience. How do you engage them? How do you keep them happy? I have my hat. I obviously did a virtual background. I've got my Penn State pom-pom if we want to get really serious. You can also share some fun things and figure out how to start to get to know them from the beginning. Pre-webinar, during the webinar, the end of the webinar, post, what are the things that you can do and use in order to connect with that audience? I like to say the first thing is sound checks and dress rehearsals, because it's really important to be able to make sure we can hear you. Or like me, I was having some challenges with too many screens trying to get PowerPoint into show mode. And one of the things I like about GoToWebinar is that you have the ability to go into a practice section. So 30 minutes before, however long you want to go before, you can go into what I call a green room and you can practice. And they will not hear you talking. They will not see your slides until you hit broadcast. So that's one of the things I wish more people had that. I know kind of the way you can do it in Zoom is put everybody in a weight room until you open up the weight room, which is what we did today. So that's another way of doing it. It's also important to make sure that people are comfortable with their audio, they're comfortable with whatever it is that they have to do moving the slides, answering questions, things like that. It's all really important stuff. This is one of my favorite things to do. Tools you can use for engagement. I talk about it as an icebreaker, and I have a slide for it as well. You want to be the warm-up back. You want to be you want to get them going, get their blood going so that you can ask them, get them to answer questions or do something fun. You may want to ask them, what are they hoping to learn today? Where are they from? A favorite of mine is ask them something that might surprise their peers. And then I tell the story of how when I was in college, I was in Army or OTC. And so the summer I spent in Fort Benning, Georgia, learning how to jump out of a plane. Yes, I've jumped out of planes. Something that they may not know. And it's a great to kind of make that one-to-one personal connection with them. And it really kind of gets them focused on the content that you're going to start. I do that about 10 minutes before, once we've kind of done our green room stuff, just to say, hey, welcome, how is everybody? Where are you from? What are you doing today? How are you surviving, the pandemic? What is it that you need from us today? What's the one thing you want to learn? What's the one tool you wish you had? Hey, tell us what some of the worst presentations are. So you can really kind of start that conversation. And questions. I love polls. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with polls. You can put polls actually into your presentation in the middle. You could put a poll in the beginning in order to kind of understand what your audience is looking for. Maybe you didn't get a sense of understanding what they hope to see from the content today. You could also include a poll in your survey or your registration page, asking them some questions, some qualifying questions to understand how far they are and maybe to their knowledge level or their skill set. It's also a great way to get away from death by PowerPoint. It's a great way to engage in a conversation with the attendees, as well as if you're doing a panel conversation. You could say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. I'll just use cloud networking because I've done a lot of those. I'm really seeing that we're really focused more on cybersecurity for cloud networking. That's what I'm hearing. What are you hearing? And then meanwhile, they go through and that you can share the information, and we say, well, our audience agrees, and here are the results. It's stuff like that we want to do. Let's try the poll. Have you ever produced webinars for your business? Tell us a little bit about how and where you are in your cycle. We'll see kind of where we are, and then we can actually share the polling when we're done. Ellen Grace, where do you think we're going to come out? How many people are experts? How many need to learn more? How many terrified people do we have out there?
I'm kind of curious about this. As a host, I'm still learning Zoom myself, but it looks like not very many people consider themselves experts. And I guess that's why they're here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Got a few more people who haven't taken the poll yet, but we're running pretty much neck to neck that yes, we need to learn more, or no, but I want to. And then one person is, two people now are, yikes, I'm terrified. So.
Well, let's end the polling here, share the results. Nobody considers them an expert. We have people who feel that they've done them but want to learn more, and no, but I want to, and we have a couple people that are terrified. So that's not uncommon, and I think the situation we're in right now with pandemic and working from home, everybody knows that this is something that they need to add to their sweet spot.
And so, in the text, we're also in the chat, we're hearing from some people. Stephanie Thomas says that she's partnered with other organizations, but she's not done a webinar all on her own. Ginger Whedon says she would hesitate to call herself an expert, but by golly, she's learned from a lot of mistakes. And Nancy Nelson says she's also partnered with other organizations.
I think there's a couple ways to get comfortable with doing webinars. One is to be a panelist, and you can just show up and deliver your content and participate in the conversations. You don't have to worry about the whole back end piece of it, which is, its own set of issues. But if you do that, you can be somebody that you can be a panelist. You could be an attendee that's going to be bringing up questions, participating in discussion until you get comfortable. I think you have to there's this mountain that I say everybody has to go over. When it becomes you're comfortable with the content and realizing that, and not terrified by the technology and doing something wrong, is when you're going to start to become more of an expert. Technology fails. That's just, it's going to happen. And I think that we're a lot more forgiving for technology failing in some ways than we were even 2 years ago. It's going to happen. So just know that and make sure you have a plan B for it.
Those are great pointers. Also, Sharyn, I liked your initial slide or your early slide, don't freak out. I mean, and like Ginger says, certainly I make several mistakes every time I facilitate one of these conversations. And Linda Thompson has also done webinars facilitated by other companies. So maybe all of us will feel more confident at the end of this session to launch off and do our own, and understanding, don't let perfection get in the way of good.
As a moderator, I like to figure out and know where I am. So one of the things I suggest to people is to create a housekeeping moderator script. And you can put in there things like, the slide from Sally, at slide 10, it's going to go to Ellen Grace, and at slide 15, it's going to go to Angie, and, back to Sharyn, and you go back and forth. So you have a roadmap for how it's going to go. And you'd be surprised how much that really helps people relax, because they have a sense of what's going to happen, when we're going to launch the poll, how we're going to launch it. And then I also add some tips and cheat sheet stuff, I call it, where I add things like, don't forget to download your handouts, we're recording and a replay will be available, we're almost to our Q&A session. I cut and paste those to put them into chat because I want to keep that constantly going. I've also known, if I'm not the main speaker, to find people who are not necessarily paying attention and ask them if there's anything else we can do or anything we can cover that might be of more interest to them. The other thing I always suggest, and you'll find out why later, is add 3 questions and answers to your script that you or the panel feel would benefit the audience. If you have a dead audience with no questions, you can keep the conversation and the flow going by having some really great preceded questions that you could either expound on, have a couple-minute conversation, or just quickly answer some of the things you might think from a product perspective or a demo perspective. One of the things I love to do is to have fun. So I have to unplug my headset because Zoom is very strange that way. And so one of the things I like to encourage people to do is have fun. And interject some fun into what you do. Well, I want to encourage everybody to get up, stretch at this part of the webinar, and make sure you're paying attention and listening.
Everybody get up and dance. We need a soundtrack for dancing. That's awesome.
Let's talk about the live webinar. It's the day of, you're getting ready. What do you need to do? Don't panic, stay calm. Turn off your cell phones, turn off your office phones, make sure the door's closed, make sure your lighting's okay. I have different types of lighting based on whatever and how I'm going to do it. Technology fails, so you need to have a plan B. The moderating script's great. The preceded questions are great. And these are trick plays I like to share with everyone. Script the webinar. And the way I do it is really easy. All I do is take PNGs of all of my slides and I put notes in there. I have everything is icon based. They're moderator instruction. This is what the PowerPoint will look like. This is what you say, or here's an action that you're going to be doing. For example, if this is how to launch a poll and go to webinar. And I do this in case for some reason somebody's connection goes down and somebody who may not be as familiar with how to launch a poll has to do it until the main moderator comes back. You make sure that you've left nothing unsaid. I found this to be one of the best tools, and I have clients who said they won't do a webinar unless they have one of these, because 9 times out of 10, they haven't looked at their content and they're figuring it out as they go into their office to sit down and actually deliver it. Having this done in advance really helps them. And I generally do it about a day or two in advance if I have the slides. It also is great for me. I have a broadcasting background. For me, this is like doing storyboards. Troubleshooting, as I said, don't panic. I'm going to share with you some of my favorite resources. I have moderator scripts. I have different virtual guides, how to share a video and go to webinar, how to join, and I'm going to make all of those available for you. I also have some housekeeping slides for how to set up an icebreaker. Here's a slide you can use. Here's a slide for housekeeping, things like that, that we'll make available to folks after today. What to do if technology fails? Don't panic. That's really, really important. I suggest you set up a second computer as a backup. I have 2 computers. One of mine is a backup, and I've also set it up as an organizer when I'm the main person managing the webinar. I add a co-organizer as a backup. So in case for some reason mine goes down or the other person does that, I'm able to pick it up. If technology fails, get over it. It's going to happen. And here's where we talked about preceded questions and answers. A great way to punt when you need to. Let me give you my favorite story for this. I was doing a webinar with this amazing guy who really knows PowerPoint inside and out. The only challenge is he lived in Thailand. He was an American living overseas. Now, we weren't sure how his internet connection was going to be, even though he had internet connection. So we went through and scripted a number of questions and answers. He went down for 3 minutes. And in that 3 minutes, I just said I was going to take audience questions. And I actually used those preceded questions and answers to look like we had a break with mini questions. And then as he came on board, I said, we'll save the rest of the questions for the end of the series. Let's keep going. Nobody knew that we were ever down. And that's what you can do with smoke and mirrors if you have to. Your webinar's over. What do? You send out a thank you note with links to the handouts, maybe a call to action and a recording link. You edit the recording and use it on demand, like Dina was talking about. You divide it into snackable videos under 10 minutes, and you blast it out on social media. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what the trend is these days. It really is how to remix, reuse, and redistribute content into snackable moments. Here's an example of the 7 principles of cloud first networking, very boring topic, but how we kind of use that. And the other one I want to talk about is one that I'm working on right now, which we did a panel conversation with respiratory therapists on feet on the ground right now, real stories about we are actually taking those panel discussions and we're breaking it up into individual topics or snippets anywhere from 10 seconds to 2 minutes. And we're remixing, reusing that content for social media. And it's very sobering when you hear from these guys. And the idea is to just get it out there, get the conversation started. So let me explain how we used a 1 hour and 7 minute webinar, and we basically broke it into micro webinars or snackable webinars, each one for a different principle or a different chapter. It was tied to a white paper book we did, an ebook, and we created different things that were tied to words we heard that were important for that category. We then released them, and what we found is that the less than 10-minute snippets that we did got more play on YouTube than the full webinar. And that is pretty common. That has been the trend for like the last couple of years. You just have to think outside the box. You can do a webinar and be done with it, or you can figure out how to remix, reuse, and redistribute your content, because that's really where you're creating an asset, not just creating a one-off event. And that's really the secret of how you're going to help do your thought leadership, how you're going to promote it. And I find that to be really useful as a way. Has anybody done that? So Ellen Grace, we can take the question. Do you storyboard other presentations? I storyboard every one I do. Even today, I storyboarded it just so I knew what was coming up, and I have cheat sheet notes for myself.
And then Ginger Whedon and Lucy Newcomb are both saying yes, and I think they're reacting to whether or not they've done this snackable video for social media. Ginger or Lucy, do either one of you want to talk a little bit more about how you've used and reused, remixed and redistributed some of your content, repurposing?
This is Ginger. I have certainly spent a lot of time, especially with my clients, when they do presentations, whether they're live presentations or archive presentations. I encourage them to reuse those. So it always goes on their website, typically gets posted to YouTube, and then I will break up the archived footage to make, as you say, I use that same term, Sharyn, those snackable pieces for social media, just so they can get a little hint of what the presentation was about and what they can expect in the future.
Yeah, that's exactly the way to use it, Ginger, because if you've got, like, for example, this happened to be respiratory therapists. I don't know how many of you know what a respiratory therapist does, but they're basically the person that is helping you breathe during COVID-19. They're really critical. We asked them a bunch of questions, and you may have like an hour-long interview, but you really just want to highlight one or two sentences because you found a topic or a theme in talking to each one of them. Unsung heroes happen to be the one for this one. I have another subject with them, which is kindness and how kind people have been to frontline workers and all the things they've done. And the scarcity of PPE, including stories like a young man who is in Southern California, works in 2 separate hospitals. One of the hospitals, PPE is not a problem. The second hospital, they are using cafeteria aprons and trash bags to go into a room for a COVID patient to put them and manage their care on a ventilator. That's ridiculous. But we wouldn't have known that if we didn't have the total video to go through and do that. And I spoke to a woman from Yale who they have 450 COVID patients on average right now that they're dealing with.
Wow.
Just astronomical right now, what they're going through.
I certainly feel grateful for my health, and I'm sure that, and I hope that everyone on this call stays healthy. Wendy Richards does have a question. How do you manage videos on YouTube? Do you have your own channel?
You know, that's a good question. I have been mostly doing videos for clients, but I just bought a presentationstoday.com, and I'm going to be launching a bunch of webinar as well as other videos up there. So that's how I'm going to do it. I'm also going to manage it. We just are launching a new website for University of Cincinnati for this thought leadership community. And we're actually creating playlists. And so you may have a video, one video being on 3 or 4 playlists. So that's how we're going to be creating it on YouTube. And then we'll be embedding them in my on your website. Right now I have all of my either interviews with industry people or the webinars that I've done that are my favorites, I've embedded into my website or my blog.
I know one of the things that came up for women in consulting in our video content with YouTube, sometimes people can automatically download your video and then you might lose control of your intellectual property. So one of the things I've seen and Women in Consulting has been doing, and I think you can explain this better, Angie, but we use Vimeo as our platform and our player that, that links to our website. Mm-hmm. And then in such cases, you know, YouTube can become that source of like that teaser material and maybe then drive people to your website. So depending on what your goals are overall for the video content that you create, you can use a mix of platforms and really think through how to best leverage both snackable video and different player platforms like YouTube or Vimeo, etc. Yeah, so Angie put in the chat, Vimeo is so easy to use, and then we embed the video on a member login page. So that way we're protecting our IP.
I don't necessarily care as much about that. I'm more interested in getting it out there and getting the credibility, but I have it locked down in other ways. When I actually process the video, I have the ability to kind of protect it that way as well.
That's right. That's exactly, and that's awesome that there's a lot of different approaches that you can take. And the best way to decide is to first step back, figure out your big picture goals, and then look at the different platforms and see which ones would be best to help you achieve your big picture goals.
What's next? So we talk about fun. This is a tough week for me because I should have been at Penn State. The coach of Penn State football has the women's football clinic, which is the most fun I have every year. It's 4 hours of craziness, and what happens at the football clinic stays at the football clinic. And one of the things, this is my favorite picture, it motivates me every day. Coach Franklin actually holds back the captains before they go out into Beaver Stadium. And I happened to be lucky enough 2 years ago to be one of the people selected to be up front. And imagine going into Beaver Stadium, it holds 113,000 people, and it's sold out for the next 20 years. That's what I look at to say, you can always push the envelope, always have fun. And I'm happy to take any questions at this point or open it up for discussion. Yes, I am the ultimate fan.
You know, we didn't really take time in the beginning to introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about ourselves. So it would be great, since we have some time before 1:30. I'm not saying don't ask Sharyn questions. Certainly we want to use that time as well. But if you're also interested in introducing yourself to the rest of the participants, would love to hear from you. Julie, I see that you went live on video. Do you have any comments you want to make?
I'm not an expert in Zoom yet, so I realized that I turned on my video, but I can't see anything, so I don't know what's happening on your end. Hello, I'm Julie Hawkins. I'm the Biz Psychic. How about if we go with that? So I provide expert guidance and clarity to business entrepreneurs.
Oh, awesome. Dinah, you had some participation earlier. Would you like to introduce yourself? Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Hopefully I'll get back to
Sure, and apologies in advance. I'm going to have to drop in a couple of minutes because I have a client call because they're doing a virtual meeting. I am Dina Jacobson, and my company is Event Tech, and I provide event marketing and management to high-tech companies. And until very recently, my business had evaporated for obvious reasons, but now dormant clients are realizing that they need to come back, and the quarter is still here and they need to generate leads. So I am reinventing myself.
Awesome. I think so many of us are looking at ways to bring our business online, because even when we're all released from shelter in place, there'll still be a call for a lot of virtual. The new normal will be very different than our lives, 2 months ago. Ginger, I see you've got your hand raised, but you're mute. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm Ginger Whedon with Set in Motion Marketing and Media. And what I've been doing over the past 18 months, 2 years, is really trying to push my clients to more video of any kind, whether they're doing stored video that they're going to put on YouTube or their website, do more live, just anything at all to get them more comfortable in front of the camera. And I talk a lot about the mechanics of that, just so they can set up their environment and not have to worry about, oh, how do I look? How does my hair look? Am I wearing the right jewelry? Just get out there. And now here we are in the middle of this pandemic when we're all forced to video. And so I've really got a lot of people coming to me to say, okay, I know you told me this, but could we review it again? So on one hand, I'm thrilled that we're finally there, because I think video is so incredibly important, and being that face to your potential client and your current clients is absolutely essential. So great information, Sharyn. You've confirmed a lot of the things that I was thinking. That information about all the different platforms is hugely beneficial to me now. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll talk a little bit more about this. Sorry to step on you there, Sharyn, but Ginger's going to be giving a presentation via a Women in Consulting event in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today, the 28th of May. And I'll give you the details on that before we wrap up the meeting. Sharyn, you had more to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, I 100% agree, Ginger, because I think the one thing that's really clear is if we're trying to build a thought leadership for either ourselves or for our clients, video is the way to go. And it obviously has to be mobile ready as well and responsive, because if it's not going to work. That's where the idea of creating a webinar and then remixing and reusing the video in order to use it in different ways to kind of stretch the impact of it is something that we got to do.
Wendy, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself briefly? Okay.
Hi, I'm unmuted. Wendy Richards. I live in the North Bay, and I'm happy to participate every now and again. It's much easier to join your events now. I work with financial services companies. I work at the confluence of strategy and leadership, and I bring the leadership teams together to actually deliver on the business strategy. I work in financial services here in the US, and I also work a lot in Europe. And I was due to be in Spain delivering a series of strategy trainings and leadership development work when Spain went into emergency shutdown. And I have converted most of my work to Zoom meetings. So far, we've been doing one-on-one. I work with live interpreters. So I've been doing a lot of research on the platforms to determine the best technology for having multiple languages on the same call. And I've got my client ready for our first team workshop. So I'll be taking the leadership training work that I used to do in the room and was supposed to do at the beginning of April. And we'll be doing that with a live group. So I really appreciate all of the tips here and just starting to think about how to apply it in that setting, and then to take it on the road and start marketing. And I've not used video yet in my own business marketing. So that would be a first for me. So thank you. Really appreciate it, Sharyn, and great to be here with all of you.
Awesome. I want to encourage everybody, if you'd like to have everybody get your contact information, please go ahead and put it in the chat. So Cecily, do you want to introduce yourself as well? Or ask a question of Sharyn? Or both? Unmute, babe.
Hi, I'm Cecily Whiteside. I am a corporate storyteller. So I help businesses tell their brand message in print and on the web. I do editing and writing and everything from product copy to to about pages and that kind of thing. And I have been I've done a couple of seminars like in person where I talk about SEO and I talk about brand messaging and those kind of things. And so I'm interested in like doing small groups to talk about those things on Zoom. And I think I don't know if Zoom is the best option, but it's really important to have that feedback. So Sharyn, is there something else that I should think about, or do you think that Zoom is fine for my particular situation?
So are you delivering content that would a post-event survey work? Is that what you're looking for as far as feedback goes?
It's more, so everyone is at a different spot. Some people have great websites, but they really want to start blogging. Other people, they have a website, but it's more like an online business card, and they need to really change things up. So it's so individual for each person that when I do these presentations, I kind of do an overview, and then they ask the questions that they need answered.
Okay. So let me just make sure I understand this then. So is what you're asking is how do you know if the content you're delivering is really helping them and is on spot for what they need?
Yeah, is it, I mean, it seems like it's more interactive than, say, you know, it's more like this kind of meeting as opposed to like a webinar kind of thing.
I have to tell you, for the way we're doing business right now, large webinars, I think are going to be the exception, not the rule. I think the idea of sharing the conversation and the connection, especially in small groups like under 100, is really going to be the way we're going to connect, especially because of what's happening with the pandemic. So, and you're finding it everywhere. I think we're not just preaching to everybody, we're engaging people in a conversation. And I think you're going to find more of the Zoom type meetings right now where we can talk about content, present it, and then discuss it. So at least that's my 2 cents for what it's worth, but that's what I've been seeing. And I've done over 2,000 webinars. And so lots of events like this. So I think that's the future because we all want to have the conversation.
Thank you for that. And thanks for the great question, Cecily. Chaco, would you like to introduce yourself? Chaco Ando? Or not?
No, I was trying to unmute myself. I'm Chaco Ando, based in East Bay. I work mostly with large Japanese corporations, and then right now I mostly spend time coaching them how to work remotely. And I was focusing actually financial services before, but right now, because there's so many people there, we are, you know, they're probably 10 years behind us in terms of working remotely. So there are so many people there basically who are thrown out of corporate office and then staying at home and just don't know where to start with. So it's just so much needs there. So I would love, Sharyn, thank you very much. It was one of the most engaging webinars, and I would definitely learn more from you.
Well, thank you. I'm known as the webinar chick. So yes. Try and make fun of it, and you can go to webinarchick.com if you want to look at some fun activities to do. But yeah, it's I'm not boring. I never have been. So it's kind of fun to kind of engage with people in this way. And I'm shy normally, so I'm not shy on webinars for some reason. I even asked if I could put the hat on and do some fun stuff to make sure that you guys are paying attention.
Yeah.
I even have a black under my eye and.
Go ahead, Chaco. You had more?
Oh, just one quick addition. So for Wendy and then anyone who's interested in using multiple languages, I would love to exchange findings and information. I'm not a translator, but I do a lot of intermediary, you know, managing meetings into language. Still, it's not easy, so I haven't found the best way yet. But I would love to exchange information.
That's great. Okay, so put it in the chat, your information, Chaco, and I think Wendy has, and then I'll distribute this to everybody. Sheila Stevens, would you like to introduce yourself or have any questions for Sharyn?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Sheila Stevens. My tagline is seasoned and savvy, and I'm about aging with passion, purpose, and power. So I do those kind of workshops and presentations. Hi, Julie. Good to see you. I am, technology-wise, I am on my backup desktop that does not have a webcam because my other laptop was not cooperating. So, yeah, it's about having some backup plans, and I'm really focusing on updating my hardware. And I'm really sold on we got to be doing the videos, the faces, the remote. That's it. So I'm really on board and trying to get there.
Thank you, Sheila. Lucy Newcomb.
Let's see here.
Hi
there. Hi, everyone. It's Lucy Newcomb. I'm pleased to have been involved with WIC for many years, and I am the CEO and founder of the Newcomb Global Group, Global Business Success from the Inside Out. We started as a global business development, sales, marketing, go-to-market company, and I soon became aware that what it takes to stay and lead in the market overseas is actually a different and broader skill set than what it takes to get there. So I pivoted the company horizontally, and we basically create the pipeline between global business development and global leadership development, working mostly with IT companies and services companies and a lot in emerging markets. It's great to be here. Thanks for a great webinar, Sharyn and Ellen.
Absolutely. It's good to see you, Lucy. Hey,
Thank
there's a question before we continue with the introductions. How to make the virtual background look sharp? Is it all about the amount of RAM on the computer? That's from Ginger Whedon. And Ginger is also complimenting Chaco because her background always looks so good. And Julie's shaking her head, yeah.
It has to do with the pixels that you get and how high res, even something as simple as sharing it as a PNG file versus a JPEG or a GIF. So this picture behind me is one I took last year. It's Penn State's football locker. That's their football room. So locker room. So I shot it. It's very high res, and you'll find that's a lot easier if you have high res. So, and you can have fun if you're talking about fun with virtual backgrounds. Suggestion: I have a 4-year-old granddaughter, and we do virtual background fashion shows. Once a week, she and I sit and we go through and we create. Elsa seems to be the favorite, of course, but it's a lot of fun and you can really enjoy, and it's a lot better than just, sometimes I get tired of seeing the same thing in my background all the time.
Right.
I have one
also. It's also the age of your equipment. So on my laptop with the integrated camera, Zoom won't let me use virtual backgrounds unless I have a green screen. So it doesn't have the capacity. I don't know if it's resolution or video processing, what it is, but I fail on the virtual background stuff.
Yeah, so, I could understand that. Because I knew I was dealing with a lot of video, I bought a gaming PC and I paid for it too. So it actually is. So it's something to really work. You can buy a green screen just online, Nancy, if you want, and then you can bring any background. And what it does is, if you'll notice around my head, you're seeing kind of the reverberations of the graphic. That's because I'm not using a green screen. I'm using just the virtual background.
And just for everybody, so you know, Chaco did make a comment in the chat about where she got her virtual background from. So I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to introduce themselves. Marcia, are you still there or have you left us? Okay, Marcia, please. Yeah. Oh, there you are.
My Zoom my computer or something keeps crashing. So then I quickly go over to my phone and back and forth. So that's why I'm like coming and going so much, but sorry about that. Anyway, yeah. So when Sharyn said, get that second computer as a backup, that's like first thing on my to-do list. So I'm Marcia Dashko, and I've been consulting with executive teams for 25 plus years to help them pivot their businesses and innovate and transform, especially to pursue opportunities or to deal with crises. And so now that we're in that, my book, which is Pivot, Disrupt, Transform, is pretty popular. And I'm actually transitioning my business from consulting to professional speaking, which now is going to be virtual speaking for quite some time, it sounds like. So I've been involved in lots of Zoom and go to webinar meetings and so forth, but those were always part of my client things, and I've never had to create it, set it up. I've just been there on facilitating 2-day meetings on Zoom and so forth. So I've got the experience, but not no technical background.
Well, you can tell you're lagging. Your technology, probably your internet connection is lagging because it freezes for a second. You keep talking, but your video is not caught up with your audio. So you may want.
Very popular here. I mean, when it gets busy in the afternoon around here, it struggles.
Couple more people for introductions. Lynn?
Hi, let me,
4 more people.
let me,
We can come back to you, Lynn. Jill, go ahead.
I'm coming.
Oh,
There
all
I
right.
am.
Okay, great. We have Lynn.
Okay, and let me turn on my camera. Hold on a second while I do that. There we go.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Lynn Christensen. I have been a member of WIC for several years, but I haven't been active until recently because I've been involved with working with a startup, which has been pretty time consuming. But I'm now pivoting my business to focus on retirement coaching, notably non-financial aspects of that. Most people, when they think of retirement planning, think of making a financial plan, which is clearly in the modern world right now important. But what is not usually given a lot of resources in terms of time or energy is what else one does to have a successful retirement, notably transitioning from a work to a retirement lifestyle. And that involves 3 or 4 major components, primarily finding an avocation or a part-time career which fulfills the need that our full-time career did. Secondly, focusing on maintaining health and wellness so we are enabled to pursue a successful retirement. And thirdly, the appropriate use of leisure, volunteer work, and other things. Leisure has a bad name in Silicon Valley, in my experience. I don't know if all of you how you would feel about that, but I find that we are not open to leisure as a thing that we do because it's considered a waste of time or a frill. And in fact, that is a primary way that we can re-energize ourselves. So I'm starting up my business in that area and hope to work with financial planners and other similar groups to reach out to those clients. One could argue this is an odd time to be starting a business focusing on retirement, but nonetheless, I think there is a large market out there of the baby boomer generation that continues to retire very rapidly. So that's my plan.
I think it's an awesome time to do what you're doing, especially because people are trying to figure out how to, everybody's having like a new idea of what their priorities are and how they want to organize their lives. This has just had such a huge impact. And thanks for the wise words about leisure. Jill, I think Jill and Nancy haven't yet, did Nancy leave? Okay. Jill, you haven't yet introduced yourself. Please do.
Hi, my name is Jill Rabinovich, and I'm actually on the East Coast in Philly.
Yay.
I've been, when you said Penn State, I right away fell in love. So I've been doing consulting off and on in between, full-time jobs, and I've just kind of refocused into kind of just staying with consulting. Currently working with an agency that assigned me a project to do, which is actually why I signed up for this webinar, which was very, very interesting. I have background in events, all different kind of marketing from B2B, B2C. I've worked on every single side of it. I did have a question about, you were talking about the virtual background and all that stuff, because I do graphics and stuff as well. So I have a PC that's it's a gamer PC and everything. But when I do a virtual background, it puts like a white film, it like makes me look like a ghost.
Believe it or not, I would say clean your camera. That's one of them, because you can use a Q-tip and a little bit of alcohol. It's what I use. So because you'd be surprised, it's like your glasses. We have glass cleaners, but nobody thinks to clean their camera. So
my computer is a touch screen, so it's always got fingerprints.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and I'm a Philly girl, so grew up in Havertown.
Okay.
Thanks, Jill. Thanks for joining us. One of the things I put into the chat was that virtual will never go away. It does expand our audience, and it gives broader access to all audiences to content. And it was awesome, Jill. You proved my point. I'm Ellen Grace Henson. I gave myself a brief introduction, past president. This is what happens when I try to use virtual background. it's kind of funky, right? So we'll get rid of that. I have been a consultant for quite some time. I started my career as an engineer, went into product management because I wanted to know more about how companies operate. And now I help my clients better understand their customers so they can build better products. And uniquely, I help bring a shared understanding of the customer to cross-functional or cross-silo teams so that they can create compelling customer experiences and awesome business results. I work with a lot of different types of consultants. Sometimes leadership consultants might bring me into a company. Sometimes, product management consultants because they want to help expand the thinking in the company about what it really means to deliver awesome product and awesome experiences. And I've been a member of Women in Consulting, I guess, for not quite 5 years. And I want to say, for me, it has been such a great community and such an awesome support network, not just for business, but also, my personal self, right? Friendships, developing deep and lasting friendships, which I value highly. And I'm looking forward to it continuing. We've got a few more minutes. Any other questions, any suggestions about future content? Let's just open it up. What do people have to say?
I wanted to say, yay, Sharyn and Jill. I'm from Philly too. I grew up in Villanova. And my brother went to Penn State.
Hey, way to go. I'm mainline all the way. Went to Cardinal O'Hara.
That's funny. I went to Radnor, born in Benmore Hospital.
Oh, how funny. I was born in Delaware County Hospital, so.
You never know who you're going to run into where, right?
Yeah.
That's right. We know the difference between soda and pop.
Well, I grew up in Wisconsin, and of course, we have a border with Illinois, and I have a lot of cousins in Illinois, and the whole vocabulary thing was very amusing. What are you talking about, a sack? What do you mean, pop?
Okay, what's the difference?
Wash your clothes?
What's the difference between soda and pop?
Nothing.
Just nothing. It's just in Pennsylvania, if you go to Penn State and somebody says, hey, you want to go get a pop, they're from the wrong side of the state. That is Steelers country. We want them to be from the Eagles side of the state. That's where they belong.
Amen.
Amen. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Well, I know people are starting to leave, so before we all dash off to other things, I wanted to make sure I tell you more about May 28th. Video tips for the faint of heart, how to look your best and be most comfortable on camera without a recording studio or professional makeup artist. Ginger Whedon, Set in Motion Marketing. Ginger calls herself a digital stylist. She helps her customers, her clients show up the best they can online, in social media, etc. And of course, her digital styling includes visual, but also content and a broad range of things. Well, Ginger did introduce herself earlier in our conversation here today. Oreen Kern is a certified image and wardrobe consultant, and I think she'll also help us explore how best to set up your environment. My office, and I hold many of my maybe more casual meetings in my office, which, it's a good sized room, has good lighting, but it's also unfortunately over the years turned into a catch-all section place. So I would never meet with a client from that space. And you see that in my dining room, I have set up a little bit nicer, maybe more professional, not so chaotic environment where I can easily pull my stuff out here and conduct meetings with a more professional flavor. And since I can't use virtual backgrounds right now, it's really great that I have enough room where I can set up different types of spaces.
There's one thing I noticed that Cecily has done. That's why I've been using virtual backgrounds, having to do virtual school during the pandemic has been a huge challenge. At least my senior is graduating, yay, yay, yay. But it's just, oh my God, what a nightmare.
Those are awesome Awesome. I overuse that word. Thanks for sharing some of those challenges. I'd love to hear from other people. We've talked a little bit about how our businesses have changed and how we're looking to pivot our businesses. What are the other types of challenges that you've seen in your life, and how else can Women in Consulting support you in moving forward?
I have a question. Will the May 28th call go out in an email? I can't remember if I saw one or didn't see one.
Yes. Yes. And it's also on the website, of course. If you go to the calendar on the web, actually, if you just go to the main page, the homepage on our website, womeninconsulting.org, on the right side, you'll see the list of coming events. You might have to scroll down and it'll be right there, and you can click on that and it'll take you to the registration page.
Perfect. And you've been a great host, Ellen.
Oh, thank you. Like I said, I'm
My
still learning.
Background,
Amazing.
just as a kind of a caveat. So I've got my two screens so that I can have the presentation up, I can see the speaker, and I can see the whole panel. If I don't need to be able to see everything like that, then I can go upstairs. I've got an upstairs porch where I can close the door. I've got, it's quiet and, and alone. But when I need, other things up, I'm stuck at my main, at my main work desk, which you can see. I've got the gaming area behind me with 10 screens.
Right.
Well, I did an interview and my son had Zoom calls with his teacher on Wednesday, and he kept rolling across the screen from one side of the office to the other. I wasn't going to be actually edited. I'm not going to be on screen, but oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, so I turn off the video as much as I can when they're wandering back and forth. I did, Davey walked through one of my Zoom meetings in his boxers the other day. He's my high school senior. So, so I mean, we all need to give each other a little bit of grace at this point.
That's right. Just the best you can.
My cat walked across my keyboard for one of the meetings I had. So I think it's just what's happening these days. We're all very forgiving. That's why I thought I could dress up for today and you guys would laugh and hopefully enjoy it. So got my Penn State Trace McSorley jersey on, and that's just the way it is. So
one of the things that happened earlier in this 90 minutes for me was while I was muted, my dog, Charlie, who many of you have met virtually and otherwise, he gets anxious. He wants to play, and he makes the funniest sounds. And I was like, okay, I'm muted. It's fine. And sometimes he crawls up on my lap. It just, this is what we're doing. This is our lives right now.
Yep. Well, I know I need to run to prepare for another event, but thank you guys for letting me talk about my favorite subject.
Thank you, Sharyn.
Webinars as well as
Thank you, Sharyn. Very helpful.
Thank you.
you.
Oh, I got to save the chat. Save the chat, Ellen Gray. Bye. Good to meet everyone. See you again soon.
Yes.
That was really great.